Okay, this is the osteoarthritis and chronic pain background. Let's get started. The causes for osteoarthritis. Probably pretty familiar if you may have a family member or something that you heard about. Pretty similar to joint injury, usually correlated to genetic defects, stresses on the joints, rapid pathophysiology, and the rapid physiology is actually not completely understood on why it happens so quickly for some people. That one is not completely understood yet, but regardless, signs and symptoms: stiffness in the joints after sitting at rest, usually in the hands, hips, knees, spine, and causes swelling and tenderness of the joints. Usually the swelling is usually due to the chronic immune system activation that you've already gone over for things like rheumatoid arthritis. So if you can't remember those, go ahead and go back to those notes and look them up. But recall that the chronic inflammation does lead to different detrimental effects to the body. Okay, moving on. Excuse me. The pain mechanisms. Nerve growth factor is responsible for the development of new neurons and for the maintenance of the mature neurons that are already in place in your body. Most importantly, that we'll primarily focus on here is the nociceptive pain receptors. There's kind of a 5-step and 5-phase process to this. I won't bore you with this. It's a little bit past what this class will need you to take and understand, so we'll just understand that there's 5 phases of this. The one we'll primarily focus on is the musculoskeletal pain that the nerve growth factor was actually responsible for. Okay, and hyperesthesia, just a little bit of background vocabulary for everybody. It's just increased pain sensitivity that occurs, and usually this comes in patients that are arthritic, and subject to chronic pain fairly often. Yes, and moving on, the pain mechanisms. The persistent peripheral nociceptor stimulation that usually comes with these types of patients leads to constant self-perpetuating activation of neurogenic inflammation. That seems just like a lot of big mumbo jumbo, but really what it means is that the nerves that are in the sites of action where the pain is being perceived are constantly being stimulated, constantly causing pain, and it's really not the most pleasant thing for those patients. So what's responsible for it? Well, the peripheral nociceptors express tyrosine kinase, or TRK, as we'll abbreviate it, and this is a major ligand for the nerve factor NGF. So yeah, you can kind of see it there in the document there as well. As you can see, it leads to a whole cascading of events which proceed to either cause the gene to survive or proliferate, if you will. So yeah. A couple other things you may need to know. Nerve growth factor, inhibition of this so-called nerve growth factor, and by inhibiting it, we're basically binding to the TRK tyrosine kinase receptor and the P75 neurotrophin receptor, or P75-NTR. Both can be inhibited and stop the connection of nerve growth factor from binding entirely, and this will stop the whole cascade in general, theoretically stopping the pain. And this is all we have. We will go over this in class on Monday.
24 hours later.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started here for the day. Before I begin, is there any questions that anybody might have today? Any questions? Okay, nothing. All right. Well, a couple of reminders for the class. Don't forget that we will have a quiz on Friday going over what we're learning here today. Along with the mechanisms, we'll have a couple application questions as well, so be sure you're prepared for that. Like I said, any questions before we begin? None. Okay. All right, well, let's go ahead and start off by describing our target for our drug today, Tanezumab. Who would like to begin? Matter of fact, I'll just pick one for you guys. How about that? And Mark, it looks like you're up. Where are you at, Mark? Mark, where are you at, Mark?
It's Mike.
Mike, yeah, that's what I meant. Anyway, what do you got for the target here?
Loss of proliferation.
No. Good try, but okay, let's try somebody else here. Spencer, what do you got?
All Alright, well according to the podcast, pain and inflammation, especially in osteoarthritis, is somewhat associated with the decrease in nerve growth factor, which is necessary for the development of peripheral nociceptors.
So very good, thank you Spencer, that is correct. Like you said, it just targets the nerve growth factor, so very good. Let's grab somebody new here for the biochemical response. Let's see who we got. Looks like Aaron. Aaron, what do you got?
The biochemical response is the inability to stimulate nerve growth factor and loss of expression of peripheral nociceptors.
Okay, very good. And lastly, let's go to the physiological response. Let's see who I can grab here. Looks like Jenna. Jenna, where are you at?
Here.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Go ahead and tell us the physiological response.
The physiological response is prevention of pain and inflammation.
Right, very good. And just like you said, Tanezumab is used for a lot of patients because in and of itself it blocks the nerve growth factor, and that's the main mechanism for causing the chronic pain. So that's what we're trying to avoid with this one. Okay class, don't forget we'll have a quiz over all this information on Friday along with a couple more application questions, so come prepared for that, and we'll see you then.